Please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. My cry, said wisdom, is to all that live. The spirit of wisdom has been at work in the universe since the very beginning. But the realization of this only came with human consciousness. We are called today to be wisdom seekers and wisdom makers. But what is wisdom? Most dictionaries define wisdom as the ability to use your knowledge and experience to make good judgments and decisions. What becomes absolutely critical, it seems to me, is how we understand the way of the universe and our place within it, for this wisdom to take root. For me, and I'm not alone, true wisdom is grounded in love, which is the nature of the universe and the character of God. It seems to me that it is impossible to understand the importance of this kind of wisdom as our response to love without first understanding the very nature of the universe in which God lives and moves and is made known. We are stardust. Really, we are stardust. Unfortunately, the way we have been taught and the beliefs we have learned do not reflect the reality of our lives and our world as part of one universe. We are not separate from each other. We are not separate from other creatures. We are not separate from this earth. We are not separate from the sun that gives and sustains life. We are not separate from the universe in which we find ourselves. Nothing is separate. Absolutely nothing is separate. Everything is connected and formed of the same stuff. Richard Rohr, a present-day mystic and Catholic priest, says this: creation itself is the first Bible. He offers these words: science is now able to affirm what were for centuries the highly suspect intuitions of the mystics. We now take it for granted and even provable that everything in the universe is deeply connected and in foundational relationship, even and most especially light itself, which interestingly is the first act of creation in the second Bible. The entire known universe is in orbit and in cycle with something else. There's no such thing in the whole universe as autonomy. Autonomy doesn't exist, as hard as we try. That's the illusion, he says, of the modern individualistic West. In fact, all holy ones seem to say that the independent self sees everything incorrectly. Each of us sees everything incorrectly. Parts can only see parts and thus divide things even further. Whole people see things in their wholeness and thus create wholeness wherever they go and wherever they gaze. Holy people will find God in nature and everywhere else too. Heady people will only find God in books and words, and finally, not even there. Once we begin to see that everything is connected, including us and including God, then we will know that the shape of the universe is love. Because God is the chemistry of all things, and God is love. This is the true wisdom at work in all of life, and foolishness is at work in every place where there is no love. The wisdom of the Old Testament, known as Sophia, in spirit form, becomes incarnate in Jesus as physical human form. Bruce Sanguin offers this wisdom in his book, Darwin, Divinity and the Dance of the Cosmos. And he says the parallels between Jesus and Sophia are simply too numerous to list them all. Sophia, the wisdom of God, was the template the gospel writers used to tell the story of Jesus. Matthew says, Jesus is wisdom incarnate. And John says, in the beginning was wisdom, and wisdom became flesh. Now you're all thinking, no, his words say, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. But the reality is, the original word was wisdom. And the followers of John changed it in order to separate themselves from the Gnostic communities at the time. But the real word is wisdom. And Simon goes on to say, we have allowed patriarchy to dominate our understanding of God, our understanding of Jesus, our understanding of ourselves and of our world. Our beliefs tend to reflect the patriarchal culture out of which they emerged. That is a culture of domination, male privilege, and explicit suppression of the feminine, which often endorses violence as a means of maintaining power. No wonder we have so much difficulty understanding and seeing God, seeing ourselves, and seeing our world in a different way. Where the wisdom of love becomes the central characteristic for all of life. And yet, if we are willing to open to this new way of understanding and seeing, we will find that it has been part of us, part of our DNA all along. Because, my friends, everything is connected, without exception. I came across this lovely story by a woman named Dee Dee Robinson, which I think brings this notion of the connectedness of all things and the place of God in it to light. And the story goes like this. An old man sat in his rocker day after day. Fixated in his chair, he promised not to remove himself from this spot until he saw God. One fine spring afternoon, the old man, rocking in his chair, relentless in his visual quest of God, saw a young girl playing across the street. The little girl's ball rolled into the old man's yard. She ran to pick it up, and as she bent down to reach for the ball, she looked at the old man and she said, "Mr. Old Man, I see you every day rocking in your chair and staring off into nothing. What is it that you are looking for?" "Oh, my dear, you are yet too young to understand," replied the old man. "Maybe," replied the young girl, "but Mama always told me if I had something in my head, I should talk about it. She says to get a better understanding. My Mama always says, 'Miss Lizzie, share your thoughts. Share, share, share,' my Mama always says." "Oh, well, Miss Lizzie, child, I don't think you could help me," grunted the old man. "Possibly not, Mr. Old Man, sir, but maybe I can help just listening." "All right, Miss Lizzie, child, I am looking for God." "With all due respect, Mr. Old Man, sir, you rock back and forth in that chair day after day in search of God?" Miss Lizzie responded, puzzled. "Why, yes, I need to believe before my death that there is a God. I need a sign, and I have yet to see one," said the old man. "A sign, sir? A sign?" said Miss Lizzie, now quite confused by the old man's words. "Mr. Old Man, sir, God gives you a sign when you breathe your next breath, when you can smell fresh flowers, when you can hear birds sing, when all of the babies are born. Sir, God gives you a sign when you laugh and when you cry, when you feel the tears roll from your eyes. It is a sign in your heart to hug and to love. God gives you a sign in the wind and in the rainbows and the change of seasons. All the signs are there. But you don't believe in them? Mr. Old Man, sir, God is in you, and God is in me. There is no searching because God is just here all of the time. Then with one hand on her hip and the other hand flailing about in the air, Miss Lizzie continued, Mama says, Miss Lizzie, if you are searching for something monumental, you have your eyes closed. Because to see God is to see simple things. To see God is to see life in all things. That is what Mama says. Miss Lizzie, child, you are quite insightful in your knowledge of God, but this that you speak of is yet not quite enough. Lizzie walked up to the old man, and she placed her young, childish hands on his heart and spoke softly into his ear, Sir, it comes from in here, not out there, pointing to the sky. Find it in your heart, in your own mirror. Then, Mr. Old Man, sir, you will see the signs. Miss Lizzie, walking back across the street, turned to the old man and smiled. Then, as she bent down to smell the flowers, she shouted, Mama always says, Miss Lizzie, if you are looking for something monumental, you have closed your eyes. If you are looking for something monumental, you have closed your eyes. Miss Lizzie, like all children, gets this truth of the way of the universe, understands intuitively the connection with all things, the way of God. Oh, that our social, our educational, and our religious systems were designed to support and grow this intuition in our children, rather than squash it out of them, producing more of us. And so I keep saying, everything is connected. And the heart of that connection is love. The reality of the universe is not that it is survival of the fittest. We know this now. The reality of the universe is that it is survival of the most cooperative. It is survival of the most loving. That is the way of God. Richard Rohr again offers these words. Physicists, molecular biologists, astronomers, and other scientists are more attuned to this universal pattern than most Christian believers. Teilhard de Chardin, a paleontologist and Jesuit mystic, said it well. The physical structure of the universe is love. This is the wisdom that has always been, and now with our ever-evolving level of human consciousness, we have come to know this. And it is our responsibility to participate in this. The centrality of love is the wisdom of God. This is the wisdom incarnate in Jesus. This is the wisdom incarnate in each and every one of us if we are willing to embrace it. Rohr continues, henceforth, all your moral behavior is simply the imitation of God. First, observe what God is doing all the time and everywhere, and then do the same thing. Those aren't Rohr's words. That's Ephesians 5, verse 1. This isn't new. It's just not tried. And what does God do? God does what God is. Love. The wisdom is then quite different than the retributive justice storyline most of us were given. most of us that were given by our religious upbringing. Henceforth, it is not those who do it right go to heaven later, but those who receive and reflect God are in heaven now. If you are looking for something monumental, you have closed your eyes, said Miss Lizzie. My cry is to all that live, said Wisdom. We are being challenged to get out of our rocking chairs and off of our porches and embrace the reality that we are intimately part of and connected to all things. For this is the way and the heart of God, the Spirit of wisdom. Amen.